Hey, and welcome back to Good Hybrid Friends, and again with a video from the partner series. Today with me I have Alex from HPE, and I need to say one of the most experienced HCI guys at HPE. Don't want to put
Thank
any
you.
pressure on you. Before we talk about the topic, Alex, just could you just kindly introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for inviting me on here and hi everyone. So I'm Alex Wilson. I'm a solutions consultant in our HPE hybrid cloud practice team, and I'm also our technical lead for our Microsoft Alliance within HPE, within the UKI and the region that we call MEA as well.
Oh, cool. Um, the topic or the reason why I brought you on today is I was on an interview recently with Ben from that company, and we discussed all these costs, return of investment things, and he came up with, hey, can you maybe talk to someone from HPE about GreenLake and all these hardware pay as you go models like you have in the Azure cloud. Uh, as the audience may know, I wrote an article I think last year about running HCI on full OPEX, and I discussed these pay as you use models like HPE GreenLake, Dell Apex, or Lenovo TrueScale. I will link that article in the description. But what I really want to bring up is the GreenLake solution with you, Alex, because
Yep.
I think even if the customer don't notice, it's one of the solutions we're seeing quite often in the market, and which is rising with the others. And that's why I wanted to discuss it, how it works, how it basically functions, how the compensation model is, and what the entry criteria are for using GreenLake. And that's why I need you as an expert to discuss that.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, certainly.
in the first place, what's GreenLake?
What is GreenLake? Yep. Okay, so GreenLake is our edge to cloud as a service platform brand, effectively. So everything that we do in terms of delivering platforms in terms of pay as you use, based on consumption, but also delivering things in the way customers want to consume them. So, do they want just base hardware? Do they want a working solution? Do they want a fully integrated solution that they don't need to look after any of the components underneath? They just need to care about their workloads. Um, so really, it's around giving the customer the experience that they're looking for. So everything from consuming the platform and some of the financials around only paying for what you use when you use it, right the way to a true as a service approach to how you consume that architecture.
So basically, when I order a GreenLake system, it's like I'm telling HP what I need. I want to build an HCI cluster, 6 nodes somewhere in the future. Then the HPE technician is coming over to my site, racking, stacking everything, cabling everything, and configuring the whole cluster with me. Did I understand that correctly?
Correct. Yeah. So we will typically always deliver a working solution to the customer in that approach. The option is also then, does the customer want us to manage some of that on an ongoing basis? So we can look after the hardware infrastructure, keep that up to date. We can look after the HCI OS layer, or even workloads for that customer. So they only need to worry about the level that they want to, and consume it very much more in a cloud-like approach, really.
So basically, if I have something, I have it running on in at the edge within several stores. I could have HPE managing it if there's an issue with my cluster, if something needs to be redeployed, or even if a disk is broken, someone HPE is calling me, hey, I will send a technician to fix your issue, or hey, we need to connect remotely because one of your cluster nodes has a problem.
Yeah, so there's that level which is really kind of the proactive support approach. So if you have an issue, we deal with that. But there's also the ability to have something that's more platform as a service and managed service. So rather than the customer needing to look after that Azure Stack HCI layer and the hardware that makes that up, they want somebody else to look after that, and they want to just look after their workloads on top. So very much like consuming Azure services, they're not worried about how it's put together or the daily upkeep of that service. They just want to consume that service and the workloads that sit on top of that.
And from a hardware perspective, is it like I'm telling you, hey, I want to build a cluster, but I need one node now. Send me 6 nodes because maybe in 2 years I want to consume that one, or is it more like a commitment to consume upfront, like we have with Azure consumed revenues and enterprise agreements and so on? And then if I'm running out of capacity, you just send a new server on an uplift. How does that work? From
Yeah, so obviously there's an agreement up front. What does the customer want to start with? What's their base level of commitment? And that can be flexible. But typically we put in something like 80% of their requirements as a commitment. We have an amount of resource in there as a buffer as well, so that that equipment is there on site and ready to use, but they only pay for that when they actually start consuming that. If they only consume it for a few days, they pay for a few days. If they start consuming it and continue consuming it forevermore, then they'll continue to pay for that. Um, but it will be based on banding of resources, so they'll know exactly how much consuming an extra amount of that platform costs. Um, and then if they need to grow, so if they've grown into that buffer and actually they still need more resource, we will continue to put resource on site. Maybe another Azure Stack HCI node, we'll put that on site. Again, it will be there ready for them to use. They can consume it when they need to. But typically the approach we have with GreenLake is we put what's needed when it's needed. We don't tend to put things for 2 years down the line, 5 years down the line, because the customer's not going to get full advantage of that. We want to try and optimize things as much as possible, make the platform as sustainable as possible as well. So not have equipment sat there, doing nothing. We want to actually be using that and consuming that when we need to, but make it very easy that as soon as they need to grow, we're there and ready and they're able to do so.
Does that also include network switches, for example? So with the same approach, when I run out of ports or when I run out of port capacity, basically, or is it only for servers?
It can be for pretty much every platform that HPE can offer. So our CEO Antonio Neri made a commitment to deliver all of our platforms via GreenLake, and I believe we are now there. That you can consume any platform effectively via GreenLake based on that approach. So rather than having to know what you need in 5 years, you have what you need right now, and if you need to grow a part of it or add another technology, a different size building block, something else into there, we can do that very easily. So yes, networking is very key to an Azure Stack HCI solution. So absolutely, if we need to grow that, we can do that.
And how does it report back? So how do you know how many cores I consume? Is there something running on the servers? Is it like in HCI, we have the Arc agent running who's reporting to Azure, and then um, is there something or the customer needs to put in place, like I think OmniView or something to report back
Yeah,
the consumption or the usage?
so that absolutely there are monitoring tools that are used, and it probably depends on your approach to how you want to consume the platform. So GreenLake is very flexible, so you could just effectively take servers to run Azure Stack HCI on, and that's what you're consuming. You're consuming that server resource, um, or you can have a fully turnkey managed appliance that will turn up as a rack of infrastructure, a number of Azure Stack HCI nodes, network switching to connect that, and it will have some management infrastructure to manage the solution as well as manage that consumption analytics, potentially provide management tools for our managed services capabilities as well. So um, if you have that turnkey appliance, all of that piece around how you monitor and consume the solution, that's included as part of the solution. If you're going for a more custom or flexible approach, as we call it, then that's something that you can choose to provide somewhere else as part of existing infrastructure, or we can add additional infrastructure to run those components as well.
And is it like, as you know, in Azure Stack HCI, it's rather complex to put Arc in place, as we at some point have our struggles with proxy. We need to have some workarounds for the registration with private link and so on. Is it easier to implement that with the GreenLake solution, or do I require VPN tunnels, proxy bypasses, something like that?
No, it is a lot easier because we're not necessarily relying on some of those services that HCI relies on. It's literally just metrics for billing. So we obviously we provide the information that's needed, but typically, yeah, that can work with a proxy, without a proxy, whatever the approach the customer needs to take.
So my last question for today. So now we hyped everyone with GreenLake, and I'm an HPE customer who recently bought not the GreenLake integrated solution, but maybe the validated one.
Mhm.
Is there an option to, let's say, move a Gen 11 or Gen 10 to GreenLake afterwards, or is it just, yeah, you bought the servers as a validated solution as a non-GreenLake and we cannot shift it?
Yeah, so obviously there are certain things we can do and certain things that we can't do. So if a customer has effectively capex purchased hardware equipment, yes, we can take that hardware equipment and we can put it into a GreenLake contract, um, almost do a buyback of the hardware, and then they can pay based on the usage for that on a monthly basis. So we can certainly do that. What we can't do is change, a validated server config into a fully integrated solution, especially not when it's in place up and running. That would be quite a significant change. Um, but if the customer is growing their environment, changing their requirements, once you've got a GreenLake agreement in place, it is very easy to add another pool of resource, another cluster, a different type of technology. So maybe more of an integrated environment at that time for new workloads, different workloads, something like that. So we'd certainly make it very easy to do that.
That's maybe a question we will get in the comments. So let's grab that one. Um, you said it's not easy to switch from a validated to an integrated solution. What's the reason? Is there something? Basically, it's both is a ProLiant server for most of our customers. Is that
Yeah,
something integrated in the firmware? Is that something contractually why you cannot make a validated to an integrated afterwards?
yeah. So it's a bit of both. So obviously validated solutions are more open by nature, but it means you've got a lot of flexibility around choice there. The integrated solutions tend to go through an extra level of ongoing validation, potentially have an extra level of support, but it typically means that they've got fewer options, fewer choices in terms of the exact components. So it if you'd taken a validated solution because you wanted that flexibility and you wanted to choose something that wasn't available as an integrated platform, there would be no way to just switch that into being an integrated platform because it would have the wrong components. Yes, potentially you might have the wrong firmware on there, um, and potentially it's already in production running workloads as well. So we wouldn't necessarily change that exact hardware. However, if that was the direction the customer wanted to go down to, there are things that we could do around perhaps buyback of the hardware and supply of new hardware that was integrated and perhaps the right build for moving forwards. So there are always things that we can do. Not everything's always a technical
And we did
answer.
that in the past. I
Yeah,
remember of some component swaps we had because the customer
yeah,
wanted to move to, in this case, validated, but also validated to integrate or non-validated to integrated after they purchased because the service they purchased were, I think, running SAP or something. I cannot remember, but afterwards they wanted to use HCI, and I remember that especially you and Zoe, one of your colleagues, made everything happen to get the cards in place, the right storage controllers in place so that the customer can switch to an integrated solution.
yeah,
Luckily, what I hear here, it's not like with your friendly friends on the market. You do not use a different type of firmware BIOS version on the motherboards, even if it's like, don't want to name a server here, but it's the 700 blah 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 blah.
hmm
It's and it's the same motherboard running in the other system, and just you do not need to swap around firmwares like the others may need to do. So it makes things a lot easier, at least
yeah.
from my knowledge. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's correct. So, yeah, we have standard platforms that we build a lot of offerings around. We don't necessarily rename that platform. So, our most common server for virtualization usage is an HPE client DL380. If that server is running Azure Stack HCI, it's still called a DL380. It's not given a different name. So that means it's still got the same ID, the same BIOS, and the same firmware. We just apply a little bit more validation around the right versions to use, the minimum versions and the supported versions, and things like that. But it's still running the same software, the same firmware, effectively.
So that's basically also when we see 23 up, H2 upcoming, and with the new driver model where every driver and firmware is supplied via Windows Update and SPE packages, then you will recognize or basically you will build the update package around the HCI operating system and put it and make it recognizable for the Windows Update service that's for your server, for the client running HCI, either validated or integrated anyway, because it will be the same. It will just be a specific version of the firmware drivers which you tested either with integrate and validate. So what I think, or how I know your engineering is, you will not put two different drivers in place because you're running the standard service. You would just use the same drivers and firmware for integrate and validated. So you would more or less take the learnings from integrated, also put it on the validated nodes and take those. So
Correct. Yeah, integrated goes through that extra level of testing potentially. So everything that applies to integrated can apply to validated as well. Yes.
perfect. So that were all my questions for today around GreenLake. If the audience has more questions, I think they can use the comments or ping us directly. So I will put your LinkedIn contact in the description. is there anything you want to tell, anything specific you want to explain to the audience in addition?
No, I think just thank you very much for the opportunity and for the time. Absolutely. If there are questions, if you want to know more, please reach out. I know there's a lot to GreenLake potentially. There's a huge focus within HPE to deliver solutions to customers in the way they want to consume them and in the approach that they want to use those. So GreenLake is absolutely our approach to doing that. So it gives us a lot of flexibility to allow customers to consume that, potentially to start small. But there are even some other financial capabilities that we have around that. So we can do buyback of equipment, even non-HPE equipment potentially. Various different things. So even if people are sat there thinking this all sounds great, but I don't think I can do it just yet, there are things that we can do. So really come and talk to us and let's see how we can help.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being with me, Alex. And yeah, if there are any more questions, I will just forward them to you.
Sure. Yep.
And hopefully seeing more GreenLake solutions out there, because as I said, the GreenLake solutions I had were running pretty smooth. And we enjoyed working with your teams globally, basically, and now with GreenLake. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
being here.
Thank you.
Then have a great one. And for the rest of the community, subscribe our channel, leave us comments. As you can see, we try to make things possible and get the people on board here. Then bye.